Okay.
Most of my stories have some amount of embellishment to make them better stories. This one needs nothing.
Okay.
And
What?
I'm proud of my embellished stories, but this one is just a story. So, um, we're living in a shack.
What
Roommate
year?
house. This is 1984.
Yeah.
And we're both, Elwood is a very, very extremely intelligent electrical engineering student at Tech. And we moved off campus. We lived in the same dorm, got to be buddies, and we were big pot smoking buddies and drinking buddies and girl chasing. So we're good college buddies, and we decided we'd move out of the dorms and get our own place. And we found a shack in Decatur, Georgia, and it was very small. And so, I was the least guy, and he was, kind of my guest. So he stayed in this, what was something between the size of a closet and a bedroom. And that was his bedroom. And then there was a small living room, and then I had a decent sized bedroom, and then there was a small kitchen, and that was it. And so Elwood was into reptiles and animals, and he would go out on his weekends finding snakes and different type iguana. He had an iguana a huge iguana living with us. The iguana would generally roam free, and was a nice iguana most of the time. But the snakes were all in cages, and there was all kinds of snakes. And there was only one poisonous snake, which he had found in the mountains and kept it and named it and had it for, a couple or more years when I met him. And it was a copperhead. And I didn't know much about snakes. And copperheads are not the type of snakes that people keep as pets. They're very poisonous and they're deadly. And so when he's moving and lots of tree frogs. So cages and aquariums of all sizes were all over the house, all over the living room, all over the kitchen, all over his bedroom, all kinds of sizes of cages and aquariums with tree frogs and snakes and iguanas and lizards. And so he moves the snake in. He goes, "This is Pugsley. This is my copperhead." And I said, "Copperhead? Why would you have a fucking copperhead in our house? That doesn't make sense, Elwood." And he said, "Well, it's staying. I'm not getting rid of I'm not getting rid of Pugsley just because, you have the lease. That's my snake." And so I had a case of Drury's beer in brown long neck bottles that I hadn't drank any. So it was a full case of beer. And so when he said, "I'm not getting rid of the snake," and I saw it had like a screen on top, a folding screen where you could fold the screen back and feed it. And I didn't think that folding screen looked like anything a snake couldn't push off the top of it. And so I said, "All right, you're not getting rid of the snake." And I grabbed a case of beer and I put it on top of the snake screen on top of this aquarium. And I said, "If that's the case, nobody drinks this beer. And this case of beer doesn't move off the top of this aquarium unless you're feeding the damn snake." And then it goes right back. So he abided by that rule. And for months, the beer sat on top of Pugsley the Copperhead's aquarium for months. So Christmas Eve rolls around, and he's going back for an extended holiday at home. Lexington, Kentucky is where he lived. And so he's packing up all of his snakes into his car, and he's having to combine some things. And, so there's snakes and tree frogs and lizards getting joined up in different tanks and cages. And he's working on this project for hours trying to get all these reptiles and animals in his vehicle to travel to his home. Gets everything done, and he's down to Pugsley the Copperhead. And so he's apparently going to transport the Copperhead in one of those, like not burlap, but like a real thick white bag. I guess I've seen them on like nature shows when they're capturing snakes. So he grabs this, what looks like a special snake bag and a special snake hook. And he says, "Okay, I'm going to pack up Pugsley." And he said, and I said, "All right." He said, I'm drinking. And so I'm kind of grinning at this point. and glad the snake's moving out. And so he's trying to figure out how to hold the bag and hold the hook and open the thing, and he can't figure it out. And I'm just kind of snickering in the background. You know, I may have been sitting in the living room or something. Anyway, I could see him trying to figure, how do I? And he said, Adam. And I said, yeah. And he said, come over here. And I got up and I went over there. He said, I need you to hold the bag. And I said, have you lost your fucking mind? And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not holding the damn bag. And he said, well, come on, Adam, it's Christmas Eve. I got to get out of here, man. I spent 3 hours packing up these, and this is the last thing I got to do, and I want to get on the road. Just hold the bag for me. And I said, Elwood, if you think for 1 second that no matter how much you plead with me that I'm going to hold the damn bag, you've lost your fucking mind. I'm not holding the damn bag. And he said, well, what am I going to do? And how am I going to get out of here? And you don't want to stay with the snake. I said, I'm not going to stay with the snake. You're going to pack the snake up. And I'd advise that you prop that bag up with the toaster and the corner of the oven and that big pot over there, and you put the case of beer on the other and prop the damn bag open somehow, and you do it. And so I'm drinking, and I don't care. You're going to figure it out, but I'm not holding the bag. So he does what I said. And he starts propping this bag to hold itself open with different kitchen things, and he gets the bags, hanging just right with the opening to the bag, wide enough to drop the snake in, and he removes the beer and opens the damn screen thing, and he sticks the fucking hook in the tank, and he hooks the snake, and he lifts the snake out of the aquarium, and he hovers the snake perfectly over the bag, and drops the snake in the bag, and the snake falls directly into the bag. And as the snake fell into the bag, I could just, it seemed like there was some kind of a little flicker as it dropped. I can't describe what I saw. I just knew that it dropped straight in the bag, but it seemed like there was a little flicker in my eye, in my view, but I didn't think anything of it. So the snake's in the bag, and he seals up the bag, and then when he seals up the bag, he turned his palms down towards the floor and was looking at the top of both of his hands in front of him and looking at his hands. And he said, Adam, when I dropped that snake in there, did you see something? And I said, I don't know what the hell I saw, Elwood. The snake dropped in the bag. I may have seen something flicker. What do you mean flicker? I said, I don't know. It looks like the snake dropped in the damn bag, Elwood. And it looks like it dropped all the way in the bag, but all I can tell you is I saw something flicker. Well, I don't know what you mean by flicker. I said, I don't even know what I mean by flicker. And he's still looking at the top of his hands, and there's nothing on the top of his hands. So I walk up to him. The snake bag is sealed, and he's holding the hook in one hand, and he's maybe looking at the top of his knuckles on that hand, and then the other hand was fully extended. So anyway, he's kind of looking at the top of his hands. He's still holding the hook, and I'm telling him about the flicker, and and I walk up to him, and I look at his hands, and there's nothing on his hands. Well, at this point, we're both looking at his hands, and we're focused on the hand that didn't have the hook in it. And as we're watching his hand, his left hand, we all of a sudden 4 little dots appear of red blood. The holes were so small it took time for the little droplet of blood to come out of the skin. Didn't bleed immediately. And after a minute or so, it seemed like a couple minutes, but maybe it was some number of seconds, a minute, whatever, a little droplet of blood which showed on his forefinger and another one on the index finger. And I think it was 2. But you could tell they were like, what would be fang marks. And so we're looking at these 2 little droplets of blood, and he said, how did that happen? And so as the snake fell, it, in just a lightning fast instinct, was on its way down into the bag, and the head had, in a flicker of an eye, had popped him on his other hand. And so fast that neither of us even saw it. And he must have felt something hit his hand, but it was such a quick flicker, we didn't see it. So now we realize he's been bitten by a copperhead on Christmas Eve in Decatur, Georgia. When no copperheads are even around, all the copperheads in Decatur, Georgia are hibernating in December. So you wouldn't normally have copperhead snake bites at that time of year. Anyway, he sits down on the couch, and more out of panic or not knowing what to do, he started beading up with sweat. And he's sitting on the couch. And he said, "What should I do?" And I said, I don't know what to do." And he said, "You think I should go to the hospital?" I said, "I can give a damn whether you go to the hospital or not, Elwood. You shouldn't have had a damn copperhead in the house to begin with." And he's saying, "Well, if I go to the hospital, the only thing they can do is give me snake serum or horse serum, and I'm liable to die just as easy from the horse serum as I am from the snake bite. And I could survive the snake bite, but I might survive it better with the horse serum." And he's going back and forth, and I don't know nothing about horse serum, snake bite, none of it. And I said, "Well, I don't care." And he said, "What you do? You can get in your car and go home. You can get in the car and go to the hospital." And he said, "Well, Adam, will you take me to the hospital if I decide to go?" And I said, "All right, Elwood, if you decide to go to the hospital, I'm still your buddy, man. I mean, of course I'll take you to the hospital." So he said, "Let me think about it a minute." And he kept sweating. He got more increasingly. He was really just getting scared. I don't think the snake bite was affecting him at that point. And I guess as his fingers started to swell, he decided to go to the hospital. He said, "Okay, take me to the hospital." So we get him in the car, and I take him to the hospital, and within an instant, they were cutting his clothes. They had him on a gurney. They were cutting his pants off of him, and they cut his pants off, cut his shirt off, and so he's laying there in his tie-dye Speedo underwear. And doctors are starting to gather on him, and I could see one of the doctors grab a phone on the wall, and he was calling a life flight helicopter to helicopter horse serum in from Macon, Georgia, which is about a 2.5 hour drive from where we were. So they had a helicopter loading with the horse serum to fly to Decatur, Georgia with the antivenom for Elwood. And I remember seeing the doctor doing this order on the phone and talking to the life flight people about getting the helicopter in the air and what's the ETA and blah, blah, blah. So as this was happening, I'm watching them strap him down to the gurney. And so they're strapping him down, and he's all naked except for his tie-dye Speedo underwear. And as they're strapping him down and the doctor's hanging up from the life flight helicopter, I get grabbed by a lady and pulled into another room, and I figured it was a waiting room. And as I look around, I'm not in a waiting room. I'm in one of those little hospital chapels. And so she reaches out and with both of her hands, she grabs my hand and cups my hand gently, between her hands, and was holding one of my hands in both of her hands. And she got my attention and looked into my eye, and she said, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Adam." And she said, "Adam, I just want to tell you that your friend is in good hands, and the Lord is going to watch over him. And you did a wonderful thing by bringing him to the hospital and taking care of him. And there's a higher power than us watching." Oh, and she got through some of this spiel, and I'm just waking up to what the hell she's saying, and the fact that I'm in a chapel, and I yanked my hand out of her hands, and I said, "Hey, are you kidding me?" And she, bewildered looking, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I can give a damn whether he lives or dies." And she just looked appalled, and I was like, "He's the idiot that wants to live with a copperhead." And so that's the story. And the result was they wouldn't let him out of the hospital. The horse serum did terrible things to him. He missed the entire Christmas. He got out in time to keep any of his animals from dying in his car. I refused to feed frogs and snakes, and I wasn't trying to be mean. I said, "Have your brother or your sister or your mother, your father fly down and take care of your reptiles." And I was furious because I told the nurse she didn't understand why I was so angry and didn't care if my friend died. And I said, he wanted me to hold the fucking bag. I would have been me. And so he missed Christmas, and he got through all the side effects of the snake venom, and he managed to get home. I guess he got home because what happened was he was eating New Year's dinner, and as he ate, his entire body froze up, including his mouth and all of his extremities. And they had to take him out, and like when they lifted him out of the chair, his body was still in sitting position. And they put him in the bed, and his legs were still in sitting position, like none of his joints would move. And so, yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard about the tie-dyed underwear before.
Yeah, that was because Elwood was he was a free spirit, obviously. And I remember thinking how embarrassing to end up in tie-dye Speedos. I've never worn that type of underwear. Uh-huh. You know, my underwear like boxers or something a little more manly, but it was only fit. And I didn't know what kind of underwear Elwood wore, but I just remember thinking, of course, that fool has on tie-dye Speedo. You know, where do you even find those? So, and I've got that vision of Elwood.
Do you have any idea what has become of him?
Yeah, Elwood became a very, wealthy electrical engineer, though since Facebook has come out, I've looked him up a couple times, and I can't find him, or can't find what happened. I don't know that I tried real hard, but it seems like I've tried to find him a couple times.
Huh. Anyway, that is an all-time great Christmas story, if you ask me. Thank you so much for telling it.
Well, every time it's a little different, and I hadn't told that story in many years, but what's strange about telling it this time was don't think I ever remembered the name of the snake until now.
Pugsley, yeah, that's good. That's rich. I don't think you've ever told me that. And I also never heard the story about him freezing in sitting position. What an incredible saga.
Yeah, and a great lesson.
I know. Don't you think he would find it interesting that you're in pest control now?